While staying in Florence, I had the privilege of being able to climb the Santa Maria del Fiore, also known as the Duomo. It was both breathtaking and educational. The dome of the cathedral was a remarkable innovation of the Renaissance era, designed by the famous architect Filippo Brunelleschi. The dome itself spans over 140 feet in diameter and was the largest in the world at that time, in 1436. The construction of the dome was an engineering feat in itself, as it was built without traditional scaffolding and relied on a complex system of cranes and pulleys. I was talking to one of the hosty people that guide you along the way up here, and see this? Look how 3D it looks. It's literally 2D and painted. And so when they were painting this, they were lying on their back and using candles to light it, because of course they didn't have this spectacular lighting that I'm getting to enjoy. And so paint is dripping in their face and smoke is going on it. And look, one of the best parts about Renaissance as era of art, they just do it so well. Okay. Climbing the dome's 463 steps to the top provided a unique perspective on the structure's design and construction. I studied the subject Art and Architecture of Florence and Tuscany in an intensive subject of 3-hour classes daily. A part of this class was taking evening walks in the city, where our teacher Lapo talked about aspects of the architecture from the Gothic, the Romanesque to the Renaissance era. Lapo was a true expert in storytelling as a method of engaging in Florence's history. I expected that learning about innovation would come from a style of learning and perhaps through the culture around me, but rather it was through learning the history of Florence, not actually about the architecture and the art. In order to understand the architecture and the art, and to understand the role that Florence played in establishing the Renaissance era, we had to understand its history, and I saw a great deal of innovation used to create rapid change. At one stage, Florence was a major part of the wool industry. In fact, 20% of the world's wool was estimated to pass through Florence in order to be treated and developed through their innovative practice of dyeing. This unique and innovative practice gave Florence a monopoly over the wool industry at that time. As an art enthusiast, I knew the city was a hub of artistic and architectural innovation, but I learned that Florence gained influence and power through the textile industry. That power was leveraged to impact the whole world of the Renaissance. Another aspect of our learning was linear principle. The use of linear perspective in Brunelleschi's design of the baptistry in Florence created a greater sense of depth and space. He used mathematical principles to create an illusion of space that made the interior of the baptistry appear much larger than it actually was. Much of this theory contributes to the 3D nature in Renaissance art. Despite this being an architectural innovation, it translated itself well into the visual arts practice and became a defining feature of the Renaissance art movement. And today, as both an artist and a product designer, this technique is important to both. As an artist, one of my favourite experiences was visiting the Uffizi gallery. It was absolutely incredible. Throughout the gallery, I learned how the Renaissance artists experimented with perspective and used techniques such as foreshortening and chiaroscuro to create the illusion of depth and three-dimensionality in their paints. This was a major departure from the flat, two-dimensional style of art that had dominated the medieval period. I was able to make these comparisons myself throughout the gallery, as well as have it reinforced by the teaching of the gallery's information. I was able to practice drawing from life and from the artwork around me in order to improve my technical skill in observation, composition, and technique. Drawing from life helped me to see the world around me in a new way, notice the details, and capture the feeling of what I was seeing. Travelling allowed me to meet people from all walks of life and cultures, whether it was through a casual conversation with a local or a meaningful exchange with a fellow traveller at a hostel. I realised that we all have something to learn from each other. One of the most significant things I learned while in Italy was the importance of language. I discovered that language is not just a tool for communication, but is also an essential part of cultural identity. This exposure to a new culture broadened my perspective and increased my capacity to be accepting of others who are different from me. Cultural awareness and sensitivity is an essential skill for potential global opportunities that may come with future study or career. This can be particularly valuable in today's globalized economy where cross-cultural communication is becoming increasingly important. I had to be mindful of my words and actions and learn to navigate the language barriers. It was a small way of showing respect for the country and its people. When confronted with a complete communication barrier with someone who speaks a different language, I experienced myself engage my communication skills more including my active listening and particularly non-verbal communication. Ordering food was a challenge, but it also gave me a great sense of pride and accomplishment. Occasionally, I would forget that I needed to be mindful as to what I say in little ways. There would be times where I'd walk into a cafe and I might be tired and I would say something like, "A skim cap please," or "nah" in a conversation. Although these are normal in Australia, it doesn't mean anything to people in Italy, and that's okay. One night we visited a restaurant where the server encouraged us to order from the menu and give pronunciation a go. The encouraging nods and the slight corrections, it was very encouraging. Along the trip, I found myself collecting the Italian language without intending to. I learned new phrases from my new friend Elise, like carta and uno momento, and from another classmate I learned scusa and scusi, both meaning excuse me, although scusa is reserved to show people respect. Italy is a predominantly Catholic country, and whether or not it's the people's belief, it's an integral part of their culture. A new friend I made asked me what it was like visiting all these different churches as a Christian, wondering if it was a particularly religious or spiritual experience for me. I reflected on the beauty and incredible architecture, but that on an emotional level, I felt a sense of guilt because I'm quite familiar with church history and the Reformation. These beautiful churches were built using indulgences, a form of tithing, where leaders unfairly and greedily asked their people to pay their way into heaven or pay their way out of purgatory time. A completely unbiblical teaching. And so that's an example of how people in the church at the time valued beauty and impressiveness over the importance of Christ and faith. On the other hand, seeing paintings in churches depicting biblical stories was beautiful. It was fascinating to see the differences between Protestant and Catholic beliefs through these depictions. Certain stories depicted had no historical or biblical basis and were perhaps another example of the church taking advantage of a congregation that were illiterate or didn't know Latin that they were reading in. There were these aspects of history and manipulation that led to the Reformation. This experience brought to life elements of the Reformation and its history that I only had an academic understanding of. These differences in beliefs and understandings is another way that I grew in my cultural sensitivity and being able to relate to those who are different than I. I would like to return to Bible college again one day and continue studying the text and its history, and this was a great way to see the history in real life and grow in my passion and enthusiasm. Video is coming up. Furthermore, learning about the history behind Florence's layout of its streets and infrastructure actually strengthened the city's ability to import and export as a part of the textile industry. This realization highlights the importance of studying history for innovation. This discussion reinforced the idea that innovation does not always need or require completely new ideas, but by incorporating past knowledges and practices, it can also be effective. Therefore, it is crucial to continue learning from the past and reflecting on cities and their history like Florence. And this is a practice and method of research that I can take into the future to find valuable insights while problem solving. Overall, reflecting on my experience studying abroad in Florence, I realised that travel has the power to transform and empower us. By embracing new experiences and connecting with other people around us, we can discover new perspectives and strengths within ourselves. Whether it's through understanding history and culture or discovering our own resilience, travel can be a truly transformative experience. The challenges of travelling have actually brought me greater confidence in realising my capability and resourceful nature. I realise I am far more capable than I originally thought, and that actually, perhaps maybe I can step up into leadership roles. Living in Italy for a little while also required me to be self-sufficient. I had to learn how to navigate the city on my own and take care of myself without the support of family and friends. This newfound independence was both liberating and intimidating. While it was challenging at times, it also gave me a great sense of empowerment and confidence in my own abilities. I learned to step out of my comfort zone and approach new situations with greater self-confidence. Studying abroad in Florence was not just about learning a new language or studying art and architecture. It was also about discovering my own capabilities and gaining a newfound appreciation for beauty in the world around me. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed seeing a bit of what it looked like for me to be in Florence and travel around Italy.